Mr. Rahul Kohli, as I live and breathe. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. Good to see you again.
Hey, it's really good to see you. Hey, a belated happy birthday as well for the other
Oh,
week.
appreciate it. Thank you. I'm
Did
still
you-
too young to play the sheriff. I'm still catching up to that age. I still don't feel old enough to have a teenage son in TV and film, but I'm getting there.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was the last time we spoke, wasn't it? Midnight Mass. That's that glorious thing, and now here we are. So it's number three. So Bly Manor,
Yeah.
Midnight Mass, now Fall of the House of Usher. Your third major project with the genius that is Mike Flanagan. Evidence suggests at this stage that you two enjoy working together.
You know what? I'm still so insecure that I go, does he still like me? Does he like me? I don't. But as all actors are insecure, I guess. But yeah, no, it's been an amazing relationship. I'm so lucky. I've gone down a trip down memory lane actually because my mum's in town, and I had an audition to do, and she had to put me on tape. And I've been putting it off and like begging for extensions and can I do and the only time this has happened was Bly Manor, which I nearly did an audition for because I couldn't get my self-tape done. And I was just going to pass just out of like, I can't do it. I'm home in London. No one can read with me. No one can do this. And it ended up being my mum. So she's only ever put me on tape twice. And basically it was the Flanagan one. So when we booked that job, like my agent called my mum and they'd never spoken before. And she was just like, holy crap, congratulations. You just got him this haunting job, which has led to like 5 different roles now. So I have this agreement with my mum, which is every time Flanagan reactivates me, I get her a little gift. And it always happens to be from Louis Vuitton. So if Flanagan calls me up again next year and he's like, hey, I got this, let's do it. It's off to the Louis Vuitton shop.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. So your mum put you on tape for Bly Manor, which, like you say, that was the last one you had to audition for Mike Flanagan.
Yeah. We did 2 scenes together. She did the Danny scene in the car with me when he first picks her up and drives her through. And the other one was she played all the roles in the like batter scene when there's like cake batter. And,
yes. Yep.
Yeah. But what I didn't know is because it wasn't like revealed, I didn't know that like a big portion of Owen's storyline was to do with his mother. So it was just pure fluke I happened to record with mine. And at the same time, I put up bloopers off the tape of me and my mum arguing because she would do these things like, if I got the line right, she'd put a thumbs up behind the camera like this, right? And throw my eye line off. And so it just like, this was like, it took 4 hours to do these really 2 small scenes. And I put an edit up of just the amount of times we were having this back and forth of me going, stop doing that. What are you doing? Why are you flapping your hands around? And apparently Paramount and Netflix had seen that and it might have helped actually. So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Hey, that's a funny choice of words when you said if Mike Flanagan reactivates me again next year. It almost sounds like you sort of exist in. It is. It's like you're in some sort of stasis, just sort of like there waiting, and then it's like something happens. The call comes in, and bang, you're back.
It does feel like that. It does feel like the Bourne Identity. It's. I think he's got like, you know, he loves to use. If you, it's a 2 type thing, right? Like I think so. Mike Flanagan has this aversion to arseholes. So he won't work with the same person twice if the relationship doesn't work. I think that's probably the most important thing outside of performance. But he has like Henry Thomas, for instance, is like one of his ultimate assassins, and Carla Gugino and Kate Siegel and Sam Sloan. So I always feel like they're like the Clive Owen, and everyone gets the buzz on the phone and they're on a set somewhere or they're somewhere else, and then we all head off and start working on a character.
I mean, this relationship that you have with Mike. So just to catch up to now. So Bly was the last time you had to audition for him. So then Sheriff Hassan, you didn't have to audition for Midnight Mass, and Napoleon Leo Usher in House of Usher didn't have to audition for that. So at what point did Mike actually start talking to you about this role? When did that happen?
So the next role is always discussed while you're doing the previous role. So Bly, I think I told you, he told me about Hassan. He started looking at me sideways and sort of like glancing and thinking. I could see his brain kind of like working on the pilot within like the first couple of scenes we were doing together on Bly Manor. Then within a month or two, we spoke about Hassan. During Midnight Mass, I think we were having like dinner at his or something, and he goes, "Yep, I think my next project's going to be an Edgar Allan Poe thing." So this was 2020, and he had said that like he was going to do another like a family-based one, just like Hill House and Bly Manor and a family, but this one would be adopted siblings. Which means he's not committed also to just like one family being one particular race. He could have like half brothers and half sisters, so we could all play this one giant family, and that we would all fold into this one large narrative, but we would also represent an Edgar Allan Poe story. So he had told me about that, like, I want to say October, November of 2020, and I think where this one's different for me with Mike is this is the first one written for me. Obviously, Bly wasn't. I just auditioned. Midnight Mass was already good to go. I just stepped into the role. Leo Usher is my first, like, Mike wrote this for me, with me in mind, as he did with, I think, almost all the characters. And bar scheduling, pretty much everyone he wanted from then was in this one.
And in terms of creating Leo Usher, by the way, I should say, a huge, huge fan of the series. If anyone hasn't seen it, it's available on Netflix right now, although I imagine a lot of people have seen it because it's been a huge success. It's fantastic. And you're fantastic in it. So tell me about creating Leo Usher. Because Mike kind of, he leaves you on his own, doesn't he? He's that trusting of your relationship and your ability to build this character. It's like, Rahul, over to you.
Yeah, for sure. At this point, it is. Obviously, he's there if there's any questions whatsoever, and super approachable. But like, I think this one in particular was like, because it was written with me in mind, and I like. It's also, I want to say there are certain aspects of me that Mike had written into Leo. So, he wanted, of all the siblings, me to be the social media, the guy that they could throw in front of, they said, Kimmel, and put in front of podcasts and be the mouthpiece of the family and have a bit of charm. So I think that was part of Mike's little nod to maybe how I've interacted in the past with press and things like that. And then he collects Jordans and has a big, Nike Jordan wall. He plays video games. He doesn't leave his house. So there was extremities of stuff of me, 100%. It was Mike's kind of version of me. And then, so like, I it wasn't the most, I know that like I had taken a big break. I think there was a big break between filming. So I had gotten so out of shape. I think the biggest thing I had to do was get back into filming shape, not even Leo shape. I had to do a lot of work just to look like how I did in Usher. And that wasn't even like, it wasn't a Marvel movie. It was just like, look like a dude who parties a lot, And I was kind of looking at, funny enough, I couldn't stop thinking about the Leo summer bod. When you see pictures of Leonardo DiCaprio and between filming with the squirt gun and models. So that was like, and because they're both called Leo, I always had this image of that's kind of how you look when you're a party boy in your late 30s, early 40s. But I think there was only a few discussions we had. I had one which I think my partner talked me out of, which I still go back and forth, and I was like, I don't know if we made the right call. I wanted to play Leo, like I don't know what a better word for it is, but like a roadman from London. I wanted to have like, yeah, bruv, how you doing? Yeah, what, bruv? I wanted to be like that and have that accent in a Netflix show, like Top Boy, which is not something I would be necessarily like stealing. I'm from Wembley, I'm from London, right? So it's part of that culture that we grew up in. But I always saw him as like a footballer, like these kids who end up with like a million pound contract, making, I don't know, 200 grand a week or whatever, but they're from round the corner, and then they're stuck in front of the media and they're like, yeah. But so I was thinking about it, and she had definitely was like, I don't think you should do this. But it would have required me to literally change dialogue in order to make it fit that accent, because it's not just an accent, it's also it's a heavy translate. I think that's what probably tipped it. I didn't want to have to go in there and redo it, so we kind of just went for something a little bit more me, unpolished. But it was the tattoos. I think that was the biggest conversation I had with Mike, was how he looked. I saw a model, a British model, whose name I can't remember right now, but like I saw him wearing this suit and he had the side of his head shaved and he was just covered in all these tattoos, and it just screamed edgy. And I sent it to Mike and I was like, I'm thinking, what do you think of this for Leo? And he dug it, but his warning was always like, this is going to be a pain in the ass for you, right? Like, if we're applying this every morning, we have to shave your body. Like, you are going to hate this after. It's going to feel good for a few days, and then it's just going to be a slog. And he was right, but I'm glad we did it, because that was the feedback I got was that look was very well received by the audience, and it also looks nice in the collection photos when they keep showing the Flaniverse actors, and they show all your characters now, which is its own weird kind of thing you worry about when you're like, okay, well, this one has to look completely different than the last because Netflix are going to do a comparison photo.
Oh man, it's he's a really great character, Leo. To me, he's the only likable one of the siblings. Really, I think he's the one that you relate to. He's got a couple of scenes, one I'm going to talk about in a moment, that you sort of go, "Oh bloody hell, good on you, Leo." Your episode, though, Leo's episode, is based on the Edgar Allan Poe story, The Black Cat, and it's mainly set in Leo's awesome loft apartment, which that was a set, right? That wasn't a real loft that you. No, it was a set. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just met Banjo, your beautiful rescue dog, before we started. He wandered into shot. Tell me, being a dog person, how was it working with that cat?
Oh, I felt nothing towards the cat. I wouldn't, if Mike had written it as, the black dog, and we were doing a bit of a change, I wouldn't have been able to get through those scenes now. I've changed a lot since having a rescue. But with the cat, no. I actually didn't get on with our actual cat that we had on set. So there was a mixture of different cats, right? We had a puppet cat, one that I could pop its eye out and squeeze its face, and then it would just like explode. We had that cat. We had an animatronic.
Yep.
And then we had two doubles, and one cat was used for marks. So you could, the trainer could basically get it to walk from one mark to the next, and that's all it could do. Just hit mark, which that in itself is insane, that a cat can, sorry, my damn camera is fighting me right now for photo. There we go. That in itself is a lot. But we then had a second cat that was good for human interaction, right? So if you hold it, cuddle it, whatever, it was okay with it. We had a COVID case on set on my first day in the loft, starting Leo's block, and I was considered a close contact immediately after my first scene, and they were like, well, Rahul's in trouble. He might show up now positive, so they had to start getting me in every morning early to do the extra tests. The next day I came in and I saw Mike in the morning, and I could see through his N95 mask. He had tears in his eyes, and I was like, oh no, what's gone on now? But I didn't realize there were tears from laughter, because the next morning the cat was taken away as a close contact. It didn't test positive. It was just taken away due to procedure. So we lost our cat. And the cat we lost was the one that you could hold and cuddle. The cat we had to stick with was the one that could only hit marks and hated being touched. So anytime I had to hold that cat or carry it was like I burnt through takes. I couldn't get my lines out. Like the first time I bring him in after adopting him, I mean, that's the most takes I think I did in that series. Just walking, holding this cat that was like doing everything it could to just fight me. And yeah. So like by the time we got to the end when I was like throwing around a puppet cat, it was kind of cathartic actually.
And I think there must have been a bit of CGI in there as well. I don't know, actually. Was the bit where you're lying on the sidewalk outside? I'm sort of still trying to avoid spoilers, so I'm going to try and avoid spoilers because I think people should see. I mean, it's up to you.
I mean, they know I'm dead. That's the premise of the show.
Yeah. So you're lying dead on the sidewalk outside, and the cat just walks over your body. That's a CGI cat, right?
It was, but it was also done for real, I think, which, again, there's so many. Usher is full of stories. It was the one show, I think, like everything else has been pretty smooth. I think Usher's probably been the most bumpiest production I've ever been on, for a multitude of reasons. But that one was, that was downtown Vancouver, shot at night. Just on the sidewalk, but it happened to be the coldest night in Vancouver and the only day Vancouver that year got snow. And it happened to be my lie topless on a sidewalk at 3 a.m. in like minus, I don't know what it was that night. It was like -3 or something like that. And I'm obviously topless, covered in, blood and all of that stuff. They were blowtorching the sidewalk just to like melt it and heat it up. It was constantly, but literally the pavement is being heated with people with blowtorches and stuff.
And then I lay there because it's that cold,
and to get rid of the snow in the area. So it was a two-step heating program, and we were there for a long time actually. And then it was all down to the cat, like, will this real cat hit the marks? And it did. I remember, because it was jumping on me, I had to lay there still, and then he'd have this clicker and he would set the move, and the cat would walk into frame, jump on my back and walk off. I think, again, this is, Mike will obviously know the real reason, I can't really remember. I don't think it did it exactly how they wanted on the day. It did it, but like, I don't know, maybe it was too quick or it didn't stay on my back long enough. There was some reason we had to go back in and do it with CGI to get, like, I don't know, the perfect shot, I guess. So it was kind of in vain, because I think I ended up doing it on green screen anyway. So that was a waste. But that was also day that was one of the days that Mark Hamill had requested to come to set and hang out in the green room just to chat with me while I was doing this scene. So the whole night we were waiting for the right time to do the shot. Mark was in the green room at like 11 p.m, just wrapped up cozy, just sitting with me, telling me stories about Star Wars and Batman, the animated show, and stuff like that. So it was like one of the best days on the shoot, but for a very different reason.
What? So that was, I mean, I was going to mention it. Obviously, you're a huge Star Wars fan. You touched on it last time we spoke. How has it been working with Mark Hamill, ticking that bucket list? Because also, wow, what a performance from him as Arthur Pym. That voice, that physicality, he's incredible.
Yeah, he really, like, I mean, he is a legit, like, proper character actor. I mean, we know that anyway, right? You've only got to see like 2 of his big characters side by side. Like this man has a lot of range, but I don't know how much of it we've actually been able to see over the years. I hope this is a bit of a resurgence. I think it might be, because every review I read almost always isolates Mark to a certain degree, just to talk about him and how intimidating he was and gruff, but also like he's got some great comedic beats in there too. He manages to still flex his comedy chops.
Oh,
but,
yeah. That bit about CCTV where he's explaining to
yeah,
Rory, he's like, that's not how CCTV.
Yeah, he was amazing. Like, I mean, off camera, I was kind of terrified actually. My first day was with Mark. I think my first scene in Usher is the Camille death scene, with Leo sort of basically saying, you know, cut me out of the will, I don't care. So that was my first scene. Funnily enough, though, I shot that twice because I shot that with a different actor, which we won't get into, but you can Google it. We had originally shot this show with a different actor. Didn't work out. He's gone. New guy came in, Bruce Greenwood. He's a fucking hero. But that original scene with the original first actor we did that with, that was my first day. And all day I remember knowing, I was like, fucking hell, I'm going to meet Mark Hamill. And we'd been building up to this because Mike knows how important Star Wars was to my career and me even just being an actor. It's the only reason I'm here. And I think also Usher would be the first time I worked with Mike in a more kind of intimate way where on Midnight Mass, I was still kind of like getting to know him and the crew, and I had just come off Bly, so it was a very quick relationship. By the time we were doing doing Usher, you know, Mike was texting me like, I think we might be getting this actor. I think this might happen. I'm looking at him. I'm looking at this person, which is why I was also, which may come back to if we get a chance, but I was able to suggest my best friend for a role because I was there from the beginning. So that's never, you know, so I hadn't had that before. But I remember getting the text that Mike was going to Mark's house to talk to him. And I was like, oh shit, this is happening. And then like Mike sent me some selfies of him and Mark. And then I think he was like, I think he's in. And then he was like updating me. And this is like months before production. And he's like, yep, he's going to do it. And I think he said something like, I'll make sure that you two have a little scene together or at least something so that you work together. And he you know, obviously honored that with that scene. But so it'd been built up to me in my mind for a while. I was like, meet one of my heroes, it's a big deal. By the time I got to set that day, I was in this like almost teenage strop mode where like so many people had come up to me on set and been like, have you seen him yet? I had to almost like be like, oh, fuck off, like, I'm fine and whatever, innit? Like I was trying to be cool because so many people had hyped it up to me. I had to go on the defense and be like, whatever, innit? It's just whatever. And then I'm like, okay, I'm just going to say hello. I'm not going to mention Star Wars. That's unprofessional. You know, I'm just going to be like, hi, Mark, nice to meet you. I'm Rahul. And then get on with the scene and let it be what it is. And I get on set and I noticed that like everyone's in this like semicircle. And I'm like, oh, okay, everyone's going to watch this. It's like an arranged marriage or something. And I was like, okay, I go over and I'm like, oh, Mr. Hamill, and he was sitting down at the desk, and he looks up and he goes, "Oh, there's the Star Wars fan." So it was like he had already taken it away from me, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, hey," and then I was like, "Listen, it's an honor to meet you, sir," and whatever, and then he said something like, I think he was like, "You're very funny online, young man," or something like that. So I was like, "Oh, cheers, thanks," and then he goes, "Where are you from?" And I said, London. And he goes, which part? I was like, I'm from sort of like northwest London. He was like, I used to live there because the soundstage for Dagobah was in this area. And then he had said the word Dagobah, and I was like, oh, it's on. He said Dagobah. He's mentioned Star Wars. We can talk about it, right? So then between takes, we were just chatting away, and he was amazing. And I got this full circle moment where he kind of I basically never left unless it was just to go for a cigarette. I basically stayed in the on set with him instead of going to the green room or just going to my trailer. And he said to me, like, "What do your parents do? And are they in the industry?" And I was like, "Nope, they're just working class folk from back home." And he was like, "Oh, so how did you become an actor? What made you want to be an actor?" And then I was like, "Well, I was 12 and I saw the Star Wars trilogy, and I'm not bullshitting. That's exactly what happened. In a weekend, I was like, well, that's what I want to do for a living. I want to be a part of this." And he kind of sat back and was like, he goes something like, he's like, "Well, I'm glad we made something that inspired you to become an actor because I think you're great, or I think you're fantastic," or something like that. And I was like, and yeah, I held it together, and then I called my mum on the way home and told her what he said, and then she started crying, which got me a bit emotional. But God. Yeah, and then we just became mates, and then like we'd have these group scenes, and Mark would like single me out and be like, he'd be like, "Rahul, I just saw you." Well, terrible American accent I'm doing it this morning, but he'd be like, I just saw your tweet," and he would repeat something horrible or disgusting I'd mention, and be like, and talk about how it made him laugh that morning. And I don't know, I was always just gleeful. I was always like super happy that I would get Mark's approval either for a tweet or a joke or something. Anyway, yeah, it was amazing.
Wow. I mean, what a thing knowing how much you love Star Wars and to have that experience. I'm so happy for you, man. And I'm so happy that you got to work with him. And it's a great scene as well, where he just grabs your arm, almost like a Jedi thing, as you're walking out the room, and then Roderick just nods and he lets you go. It's a great moment. Listen, we're going to talk more about that scene, and indeed a lot more about Usher as we go on this journey, because I've got a billion questions to ask you about that series. But let's do this. So we are about, because you are our first returning guest, to do a very special trip to the movies. It is our Rahul Kohli holiday season special. So we've never done this before. Could go either way, I'll be honest. May well become as legendary as the Star Wars holiday special, or not. Could be brilliant. Could be brilliant.
Yeah.
So it is time to leave this reality and enter a dimension of pure Christmas, where our virtual Christmas cinema awaits. Rahul, you are our guide. We are your audience. Let's go on a Christmas trip to the movies. So we push open the doors to our temple of film and find ourselves in the foyer. Oh, it's beautifully decorated with Christmas decorations. There's a tree in the corner and an excited buzz, as there always is in a cinema foyer. The hum of anticipation. It's your perfect festive cinema trip, Rahul. Who are you going to pick, living or dead, to go with you?
Last time was Daniel Day-Lewis, which I think might have been a bit of a waste when I think about it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because like I didn't think about it, and I this one got me because it's Christmas, Ghost of Christmas Past. I'm going to start mad personal here with something that's very heavy. Genuinely, it's not a setup for a joke. You said I could bring someone who's dead, and you said that last time, and I kicked myself. I'd want my grandmother, my late grandmother. If I had the opportunity to see anyone in this world who wasn't around anymore, it would be my gran. I was very close to my grandmother, and she passed away, like, I don't know, a week before iZombie kind of all kicked off, my first big break, so she never got to see that. So, and she'd supported me more than anyone when I was like dropping out of school and trying to achieve this acting thing and being a little background extra in EastEnders, and she was there for all of it. And then we just missed her by a week when I finally secured my first big job. So I got to take Gran. I got to bring my grandma to the cinema just to spend one more day with her.
Oh man, and as well as watching a movie together and enjoying the experience, she'll be able to see that all the support she gave you and how it's paid off and what it's led to.
Exactly, that's it. And like, I think, was it last time you asked, like, what posters were in the foyer?
Oh, we'll come into that, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll say that. Yeah. Okay.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, it would be that. I'd want to be able to talk to her and be like, I did it. I know it was scary, and you thought your grandson. We were always very close, and I think she had this unwavering belief in me that I'd make it even when I didn't. And yeah, so like, yeah, it'd be nice to sort of be like, well, I sort of did in a way.
And with it being Christmas and festive, was that a particular time of year where you saw your late grandmother a lot?
Yeah, every single Christmas was at Grand's. Every single one, and it's never been the same since she passed. Like, you always have, it's usually, I think, a grandparent that kind of keeps a family together. They're the glue. So on my father's side, it was my grandma. So all of us would be, all my uncles and aunties would get together on Christmas Day at Grand's, and which meant all the cousins would fold in, and there'd be this like split, and it was always, and so I always associate grandmas, especially Christmas, with video games and movies, because what would happen was, I mean, we were going there until I was 20. It was quite late. I mean, she passed away when I was 27. So like, we were still doing that then. Like, even as 27-year-olds, 26-year-olds, we'd still make sure it was either that or Boxing Day. It'd be one of the two. And it would be like, everyone would do the dinner, and then we'd be doing the movies, and we'd do it as a group. So me and my cousins and my sister, and we'd watch whatever either someone had got given as a gift, which was usually the case. Because me and my cousin Emil were massive movie fans, and we'd always end up with like some box set or some movie that we wanted on Blu-ray or whatever. Or when we were even younger, we'd have the Nintendo 64, and we'd be doing like GoldenEye, Deathmatch. That was Christmas. It was always that. It was with the video games or movie watches together, and it was always at grandma's.
So I get that completely. I think you're absolutely right. It was my it was Christmas at hers, and so movies that you saw as a kid on Christmas Day were often at my grand's house. Now, you're a bit younger than me, so I don't know whether this applies to you, but you might have been a bit young. But were you sort of aware of the Christmas period where it was all the Star Wars movies started appearing on ITV at Christmas? So you'd get Empire Strikes Back on Christmas Day on ITV. And that was my introduction to them. That was when I first discovered Star Wars, mid-80s, when I was about 5, 6, and they were playing the Star Wars movies on Christmas Day for about 3 years.
Oh, no, I had no idea. I think it was when... Yeah, yeah, it was never on terrestrial for me. I always remember, I was trying to remember this because to be fair, I fucking hate Christmas, so I don't know if I was the right person to have Christmas. Anyway, but were Bond movies always on TV as well? I was trying to remember, like, what comes on terrestrial. What do they pump at you during Christmas? And it felt like Bond. Was that Bank Holidays? I'm trying to remember.
I think that's Bank Holidays. Bond is Bank Holidays. Why do you hate Christmas? Well, let's get it out now, because we're about to do about another 45 minutes or so all about Christmas. So we should cover this up front rather than like I'm just me editing it out. Going, he never said that. He bloody loves Christmas. That's why he wanted to do it.
I'm a miserable sod. I always have been, and I, it's not put on. I've always just been like about everything, like forced fun, group celebrations, being told like today is this day, you have to be in this particular mood, this festive, like it's, and I'm not. You have rebels, like real rebels, like will fight the system, push. Against laws and weird social structures, and I'm not brave enough for that. I'm a sheep. I'm a bootlicking sheep, except against things like Christmas or some Easter or maybe like someone's birthday cake at the office. That's where I take a stand, where it really matters on bullshit like that. So like, even as a kid, I just like, I don't know. It was always this pressure that like today we all had to like pretend like everything was all right and come together. And I guess I was just this moody teenager, and I'd always like ruin it for either my sister or my family, and then like this is an overshare, but like in my family, outside of the four, I wasn't very well treated by the elders, except my gran. My gran was my safe space, but my uncle, my aunties, terrible to me. Just, I was the kid that they hated, and they didn't like their children kind of like being overly kind of social with me. I was just this like kind of freak. So like getting together at family get-togethers were always slightly awkward too. And so I just kind of, I don't know, like, I never liked them. Grandma, again, was always the safe space. Grandma always used to defend me and be like, don't talk about my grandson. But the rest of them, they're just fucking mean. So like, it's all of that, really. And then, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think it's uncommon, right? A lot of people don't like the holidays.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you doing something nice this Christmas? Do you shut yourself away and just sort of go, I'm not engaging with this day?
I feel like there is you kind of have to do something. Yeah, and that's the other part. I mean, that's the bit you probably will have to cut out. Is like, you know, there is the kind of capitalist commercial side of it that makes you feel that it's the loneliest time of the year if you're not doing what the adverts say you're doing, right? Which is big family, turkey, and you got your partner and on. And if you're not anywhere close to that, you feel like, you know, you're made to feel somewhat inadequate. And that's the part that I always like, especially struggled with when I was younger, because I never felt adequate. So those time of the year when my cousins would be like, well, we can't go to grandma's because I've got to go to my girlfriend's family. It was just a reminder that, you know, you're like, well, I'm available for all the fucking Christmases, isn't it? But like now, I mean, now I kind of do. I either have to fly back to London and see my nephew and see my family and stuff like that, my mum, my dad and that, or I'll just do something in LA small with my partner. Like maybe we'll just make sure we have a meal, but there's like in LA, I'm isolated. I don't really have any friends or family here, so we just like maybe we'll watch a movie. It's kind of, you know, I think I'm at that age where Christmas has fallen off, and it will hit that kind of spike if I have children. I think I'm at that point. Like I've stopped getting something out of it, and then it should shoot back up.
I get you. So once again, welcome to the Rahul Kohli holiday special. It's good. Yeah. Tell me then, you're watching it. You're probably going to be watching a movie on Christmas Day. This is your chance to tell me. There's a clock in the foyer. It's holiday season. What time of day are we going to the cinema?
Noon. And we have to do noon because I brought my gran with me, and I assume she's her age that she was when she passed. So she's like 89 at this point. I can't bring her any later. She'll fall asleep during the movie. So it's got to be a noon visit.
I love it. That's thoughtful. That's great. We're going at noon. So you've booked the tickets. Where in the auditorium are we going to be sitting?
Usually we go for kind of middle back, you know, best kind of view in line with one of the speakers, get the best sound. But again, a lot of this now is about hosting my dead grandmother. So I've got to pick an aisle not too far up the steps so she can go pee. Because that's just cruel if I stick a middle back at the top. So we're going awkward aisle as close as possible to the ramp to get out in case she needs to go to the bathroom.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful thing to do for your gran. If it was me, I'd want the same thing. I think we've discussed this before. I need an aisle. I need to be able to get out easily because I don't have the strongest bladder in the world. We don't need to go into it again. We covered it. I feel like I've said enough on that subject, but I do appreciate your consideration. Right then, final thing we need before we leave the foyer and start our walk down the corridor and put up those posters you mentioned. We need The air is full of wonderful smells. All manner of festive food is available at the various stands, from mince pies to a full Christmas dinner. What are you choosing to eat?
Oh, this was hard. This was one of the hardest questions to think about, right?
Yeah.
Because it's all so good. That's the bit about Christmas I love. It's the food, man. Like, we don't usually have pigs and blanket all the time. We don't usually get anyway. So I was thinking about it, but I couldn't stop thinking about what we do with the leftovers. And my mum would make the turkey sandwiches, get a bit of stuffing in there, and it was the reheated sandwich next day type. Yesterday's Yorkshires reheated with a bit. I want a leftover sandwich. I want a big fat turkey sandwich with some gammon in there, with the yesterday's stuffing, with a handful of like pigs in blankets. I want leftovers. I don't want it fresh, because those are my favorite.
Love that. I love that sandwich. But are you with me with this? You got to stick some crunchy salad in there. You got to get some lettuce in there, a bit of mayonnaise on it. This is what I do. I'm like the turkey with the mayonnaise and a bit of stuffing. That to me is the perfect sandwich. You're looking at me like, what? Why are you putting fucking lettuce in my sandwich? You don't have to have the lettuce.
Nah, I'll take the mayo. It can be dripping with mayo. I don't know why I'm having any greens. I know people have most people don't eat Brussels sprouts, right, until it's Christmas. And I think there's always a guilt that you need to have a token few veggie, because it is just going to be a giant plate of meat, right? Mostly. I've never felt any societal pressure to dress my plate up with some garnishings. It's all meat, gravy on the top, floating Yorkshires or whatever, just somewhere in the gravy pool.
Hey, so I mean, look, it seems like a perfect time to talk about it. You said earlier that you had to get back into shape for Usher. Just exactly what happened in the period between the last job and the fall of the House of Usher. I mean, what happened, man?
I'm going through it now, which is I'm currently at 240 pounds, which I don't know what that is in kilos, but I'm the biggest yo-yo. Right. You know, when people, what you should do as a well-adjusted adult, especially if you work on TV, is look, you don't have to work out every freaking day if you're not working or if you're between jobs. Everyone has their hiatus look, but a measured amount. And then when you book it, you look at what the role dictates and decide where you need to go from there and how much work you need to put in. I seem to do this thing where it's all or nothing. So for a role, it will be the strictest kind of discipline of, having these, meal prep training 5 days a week, whatever, just to look like how other people look in their hiatuses. That's the amount of work I do, because when I'm not working, it's McDonald's, Popeyes. I have the diet of an 18-year-old with their dad's credit card. Like it's Uber Eats. It's just bang, bang. What do you want for breakfast? Well, there's cereal. No, bang, we'll just get a brioche bun with a fried egg and it cost me 80. But it's so bad. And it's like, there's I'm starting to feel my age, and it is diet related. And I think I was even saying this to Flanagan. I was like, when you're in your 20s, your bedside table, it would be like, depending on where you were in your life, there might be a bit of water there, but it was your phone charger, maybe some condoms. That was about it. Whatever. Yeah. If it was like, either you were alone or you're with someone, that was usually what you had. Now, I've got water, Pepto-Bismol, Tums, antacids, no strips for sleep apnea. Like, the amount of things that are building up that I need just to try and sleep for 4 hours without choking, it's just increasing. And then, so and it's so funny because all these shows come out and I do so much work to pile on the weight between shows. I'm being they're looking at these photos of Leo, for instance, like, oh, wow. And I don't think I've been out a lot in LA recently, and I've not been recognized for Usher at all, right? At all. And which is nuts, because it's like it was the most streamed show in the world in October. And I do stand out. I'm like, you know, I'm not like some generic, like I know I stand out. I've not been recognized, and it might be because I I look like Jake LaMotta, De Niro on the other that side. I've gone that way for the end of the movie, and everyone's watching the first bit of the movie. Yeah, and now that the strikes are over, I've got to lose it all quickly.
Right. I mean, and also, like, do you like the challenge? Is that part of it? When you say all or nothing, is it sort of like, look, I'm going to take it to this level, because then I get to sort of like work from this place to whatever is required for this role, and that is part of the building of a character for you? Or is it just, I don't give a fuck, I'm just going to do what I want for this period, I'm not working?
It's that bit. It's the second bit. But
right.
there is like, just to get back to normal, now at 38, like, the amount of work I've had to do in between these shows just to go to like, he looks normal. Like, there's no abs. There's, you know, there's still a bit of jiggle. Even that like takes like 6 months of like a dietitian being like, okay, you need to stop eating at 4. Here's your 3-hour window. Like, and that's just to do normal, because that's how abusive I am when I'm out of work. But I kind of like it, because I don't think my partner does, but like, to me, that's enjoying life. I'm usually abroad when I'm filming. I'm usually alone, in a hotel, and for some reason, when I'm living that life, you know, it's easier to kind of like, or I can make 7 a.m., 5 a.m. gym calls just before work. I can somehow, I bring my meals to my work and protein shakes and stick to it. And I'm super disciplined when I'm away from home. Because I'm almost not living my life, right? I'm not around my stuff. So I can adopt any kind of lifestyle that I decide is going to, you know, start from this shoot day. As soon as I get home and there's all these toys and movies and home time and dog play time, I'm so happy that I eat myself to death. Like, it's out of pure happiness of being home, really, and dinner dates with and just picking the worst things possible all the time, every day, going, yeah, the burger, yeah, I'll do the burger, yeah, with the ice cream sundae, yeah, and just doing that until I'm reactivated. And Flanagan's like, I've got this hot boy for you to play. Fuck. And I start going to Mike. I've got to this point now when I go to Mike's, I'm so paranoid, because I'm like, he can see me, right? He can see me. There's no hiding. There's no Instagram angle where, like, so I wear like extra baggy clothes and make it look like a Kanye shirt, like it's a fashion statement, because I'm an actor boy. Really, I'm just like, I hope he doesn't realize I'm not leading man material with these tits. So.
Oh man. All right. Well, the food that we're having is a delicious Christmas leftovers sandwich, but no fucking lettuce. Just swimming in mayo and meat. Meat and mayo and a Yorkshire pudding. That's what we're taking. Right. Let's make our way through the set of doors into the corridor that leads towards the auditorium. Now, the corridor is looking pretty bare, so as well as putting up some Christmas decorations, I'm also going to put up some posters that depict your most important movie memories of the festive season, and the first poster we're putting up depicts your fondest festive movie memory.
Okay. Fondest festive movie memory. I have this joy moment. My uncle, my mum's brother, took me and my sister to central London, like height of Christmas, to see Home Alone 2 in Leicester Square. And I must have been like 7 or 8 years old. But like, he took us, and it felt like Times Square, and it felt like, you know, Macaulay Culkin in New York, like the trees, the lights were up. I remember he took us to, like, I want to say we went to Hamleys or something too, to just pick us something up. But being in Leicester Square, and you know, when you're a kid going into Central, you might as well be flying off to Los Angeles. Like, it's a big trip away from home. I'm going to Central London. But there's something about that memory and being just me and my little sister and my uncle taking us to see Home Alone 2, which we were super excited to see as well. Has got to be, it keeps overriding all these other little memories I have of Christmas at Grands and all of that. There's something special about that, mate. It feels idealistic almost.
That's a great memory, and I'm a big fan of Home Alone 2 myself. We'll talk more about comparing them, but the one thing I will say about Home Alone 2, big Tim Curry fan myself, and him as Mr. Hector the concierge. I'm just I'm sold on that movie. Now, absolutely. I did say I was going to mention, I was going to mention some more about the fall of the House of Usher, and I want to pick out my fondest memory, as in, I think one of the nicest moments in that series, which is full of darkness, but and arguments and quite difficult relationships between characters. But there's a moment, and I believe it's in your episode or the episode it'll be the episode before your episode. Kate Siegel's episode, and it's where you and her have eaten edibles on the sofa in Leo's apartment. And she's doing that wonderful monologue about being a ceiling fan and how none of the Usher children actually make anything. But I think it's just one of the most tender moments, because your two characters actually like each other. And in a sea of arguments and hate and one-upmanship and bickering, it's just a really touching moment and a beautiful scene.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think we felt that way too. It felt like when we were doing it, it felt separate. Also, the one with Perry, both those two scenes felt very separate from like what we were doing normally. It was obviously I love Siegel's probably one of my best mates at this point. We're very similar, and we have very similar kind of chaotic vibes on set. And I was just looking forward to a day where it's just the two of us, because I think on Midnight, I don't feel like we've hovered around each other. We've had days where like we've both been in and had a decent amount to do, but not together. There's always either been a third character or it was a group scene, and then we'd be like mucking around between takes, but not like, okay, it's Kate and Rahul, where are they, kind of rehearsing and working on something. Sorry, this damn camera she gave me is fucking awful. Sorry, dude. There we go. I don't know. Like Leo, it was a weird one with me, because there wasn't like a big discussion with Mike about why Leo does feel slightly different to everyone else, and I think it was the compassion. I think like his and like usually when you're being able to kind of talk to the person who wrote it is a privilege. A lot of the time, like especially when we were doing plays in theatre, you don't have access to that writer anymore because it's fucking 300 years old or whatever. But like, so you're looking for clues, but you still do that now, even when you could just call someone and go, "Hey, what do you mean by this?" You're still kind of working in isolation, looking for clues. And I was like, this is so weird, because Leo's the only sibling no one directly talks shit about. Like Camille will say, you know, Leo fucks his fans or whatever. They talk about him, but they never are like directly assassinating his character. None of the siblings do that. So I was like, well, that's something about who this guy is. Why don't they ever? And then on top of that, when we start with the bounty on everyone's heads, right? Find the informant, 50 mil bounty. No one in the scripts ever think it's Leo. He's not brought up once. It's Perry, or it's maybe Camille did it, or maybe you did it. And so I was like, so they never even like think it's Leo once. Why? And I had to try and figure that out, because it was going to like, so I had made this decision. I was like, well, what makes this sibling isolated? And I thought, well, maybe he's just not that bothered about Roderick's affection. What he is, but not to that degree, because if we take out the competition of Daddy's affection and trying to impress him, that stops his other siblings being competition. And if he's not in competition with them, he's not a threat to them. And if he's not a threat to them, then maybe they can fight, right? And so I was like, maybe that justifies it. So that was in my head. I was like, well, that's got to be it, right? I never actually asked Mike. I'm sure that's what he intended. I just was like, okay, I guess that's why no one suspects Leo. He's the safe sibling. He's got his own demons, but he don't bicker with the siblings. And then I was like, well, why doesn't he have daddy issues? And I just made this headcanon. I was like, well, maybe he had a good stepdad. That happens. Why, he had a really loving stepdad, and he had a good family, but he was seduced by, having his biological father come along and throw multi-million dollars, at him and flew him out to America. So what we did was Trevor Macy's Mike's producing partner and basically, was he a partner of Intrepid Pictures. Trevor, we had a painting of him in a movie. It was like a background thing. And I think it might have been either Oculus or Ouija. It was one of the old movies. There's a portrait of him looking like some, 18th century kind of well-to-do guy. And I had makeup turn that into a tattoo, and I put it on Leo's ribs. So Trevor Macy is on my ribs, and in my headcanon I was like, that's his stepdad. That's his dad in London or whatever. So Trevor's on my body. And we tried to make sure that when Leo was getting head, Michael Fumignoria, director, and Mike Flanagan, like, we wanted it to be in frame just as Leo's getting head because we thought it'd be super funny. But you end up seeing it better when the cat walks on him. But that's Trevor. Anyway, long story. But yeah, that was one of those three scenes that kind of informed me, okay, this guy kind of isn't the same as everyone else in that respect.
Yeah, I want to talk more about Perry, in a little bit. Let's put up another poster now. Let's continue down the corridor. So we're putting up a poster for Home Alone 2 as your fondest festive movie memory. It's time to put up a poster for your worst festive movie memory.
It's going to be The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers.
Okay.
And it exists in the Kohli household as the reason why we had a big fight one year and I ruined Christmas for everyone. I am a dick, especially when I was younger. And I kicked off one Christmas morning because I had said that I had wanted the Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers extended edition DVD box set. But I wanted the collector's one that came with the little golem or whatever. Something was lost in translation, and I was given the extended editions without the statue. And I don't know what the fuck I was on, but I don't know why I thought I just let rip on my wonderful family, my beautiful sister who had spent, her money to get me this thing, because it wasn't exactly as I had asked for. And it just, I don't know, I think I stormed off. I caused a big fucking fight. And we're just a small family. There's 4 of us. And so whenever I think of Christmas arguments, I'm like, yeah, The Two Towers. I remember when I did that. Don't know what was wrong with me. Hormones. I don't know, I just decided to pop off that day. I think we got back to normal by the time Christmas dinner. We sat down and I think I was embarrassed about how I behaved. But there's been a few Christmases where I've done that with presents. There's a second one. It's a real fast one, but it involves my sister. We had a budget. I think my dad gave me like £15-20 to spend on my sister because I didn't have money when I was a kid, right? So he'd give us a bit of cash and be like, "Go get your sister something," and he did the same for her. And for me, on my Christmas list was a T16 Skyhopper, the thing that Luke Skywalker's holding in A New Hope, right, when he's playing with it. They had that as a figure, as a vehicle, Hasbro toy. And that was about 16 quid at the time from like an Argos. And my sister had wanted, I don't know, it was like a Spice Girls album or some shit like that, which was like 11 quid. I don't know. Anyway, so we go shopping and she gets me, using the full money, the Star Wars toy on the list. Again, she's the good kid. She does it. Me, I go, but then I see something else I want. So I bought another Star Wars figure, left myself with about £4 left or £5 left to spend, and bought my sister Neighbours, the Australian soap opera, their Top Trumps cards. And it had a giant picture of Toadfish on it. And she didn't even really watch Neighbours, but I just remember it's ingrained in my head, and I gave that. So I spent her budget and got her Neighbours Top Trumps. And I remember you can still bring it up to her now, and she remembers, but like that caused a massive, massive fight. And like, I think she was crying. Like, I did do her dirty there. I told you, I was an arsehole. I'm trying not to say the C word. That was my second bad Christmas memory, was the Toadfish one.
I mean, if I didn't know just how much you loved Star Wars, it would be even worse. But you do love Star Wars. I don't know if it gets you a pass on Neighbours fucking Top Trumps.
I know.
That's almost like you hate someone. That's something you give to someone you hate.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm sharing this now because I think my sister's proud of me and she loves me. But it's been a bumpy road, It's been hard for them to support and love me, and I'm acknowledging that like they're good people. And for some reason, again, I've shown my arse at Christmas. It's always Christmases. I don't know what, and that's probably why I got this thing again. So it's the Grinch. I'm always like, I'm gonna fuck this up for everyone somehow, for no reason. Yeah.
I called this. I sort of compared this to a holiday special, perhaps the Star Wars holiday special at the very start. I'm starting to think this is more like a sort of version of A Christmas Carol, and you've just exercised the ghost of Christmas past. So that's good. That's a good way of looking at this.
I think so. With my grandma being next to me, right? We got the ghost of Christmas past. I think it's more of a Scrooge thing going on here.
It is. But by the end, who knows where we'll be? But let's put up a poster for. I mean, I don't know. No, I'm not putting up Neighbours. Let's put up the Two Towers, because that's where it began. The Two Towers, Xmas present disaster. Right, then the next poster is for the last performance in a Christmas movie that brought you to tears.
This is odd, because I don't really watch Christmas movies. But first, we have to acknowledge that Edward Scissorhands is a Christmas movie. Are we cool with that? I think it is.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, the whole second half, the last third at least, is set at Christmas, and it's the juxtaposition of how it suddenly becomes the season of goodwill, and they all turn on poor Edward.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, for me, and it still gets me every time, when Winona Ryder says to Edward, "Hold me," and he goes, "I can't," and just walks off, and then she helps him and puts his scissor hands around him. Tears every single time. And it might be just like that, like Pavlovian thing, as I used to cry as a kid over that movie. Used to just always make me super sad. That if I watch that tonight, it will be that same moment. Edward Scissorhands.
And is it a frequent or infrequent thing, you crying at movies? Is this, like you say, it might be Pavlovian? Do you cry at new movies?
Frequent.
Like if you see, you do
all of it, trailers, the soundtrack. I'm not doing myself any favors on this podcast. I sound absolutely fucking insane. The other day, my partner, I was showing her a TikTok, and it was this like 12-year-old boy doing karaoke of Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On," and I was showing it to her. I was like, "Look at this," and he's giving it large, and he's doing a really good job. And she looks up, and I was crying, and she was just like, it was just a red flag for her. She was like, "Oh my God, one day he's going to turn on us." It doesn't, honestly, if I come up to you and go, "No, it's a beautiful performance, I was in tears," it doesn't mean anything. That's so fucking easy. It's not a compliment from me. You've just got to do the bare minimum.
Okay, well, we're putting up a poster then. Not a compliment, but nevertheless, it is Edward Scissorhands for Hold Me, I Can't. And the final poster we're putting up before we leave the corridor and into the auditorium is what your unpopular opinion about Christmas movies is. What is your unpopular Christmas movie opinion?
My unpopular Christmas movie opinion is, and this is again, it's a debating, right? Like, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Yeah. Rocky IV is a Christmas movie. Rocky IV is a Christmas movie and one of the best Christmas movies, which is never in anyone's list.
That's an interesting one. So Die Hard, yes, we don't need to have that debate. That's a boring debate. I think I totally agree with you on Edward Scissorhands. Tell me why you think Rocky IV, which in my opinion is the best Rocky. That's probably sacrilege, but nevertheless, it's my favourite Rocky.
I'm with you.
Okay. Why? But why? I've never considered it a Christmas movie, and I'm a fan of the film. Tell me why it's a Christmas movie.
There's snow in it. I'm starting with easy ones.
It's Russia. I'm sure there's snow. It's right.
Yeah, red trunks. But he fights on Christmas Day. December 25th is the day of the fight in Russia. And every time it kicks back to his son, the robot's got a Christmas hat on. They're in front of a Christmas tree. He trains throughout Christmas in Russia in the snow. Adrian comes back. They make up. He's confronting, Apollo's death, which someone could stretch into some sort of Christmas, metaphor.
Yep.
And then he solves the Cold War on Christmas Day. Like, he has the whole crowd cheering for him. I think that's one of the most uplifting Christmas movies of all time.
That's the end of the fight, where he says to the Soviet audience, largely soldiers, he goes, if I can change, you can change, everybody can change.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Also, I think on IMDb Trivia, someone said that the translator isn't translating what Stallone's saying. It's a complete bastardization and doesn't make any sense.
What, intentionally within the confines of the plot of the film, or just they didn't? It was just right.
He's just doing some. He's doing a trans. They're not getting the same moving speech that the American audiences are getting.
Okay, I think I agree with you. I mean, it's not really very festive in terms of sentiment, the fact that Adrian has gone off to Russia. So, like, his son is watching his dad in a fight on Christmas Day on his own, and it's a fight in which his dad might die.
But he's got the robot, and he's put a hat on the robot. He must have done that, because the robot wouldn't. Oh, but the robot's sentient, isn't it?
I don't know. It's where are we now? 1989 was it? Rocky IV?
No,
I mean,
year I was born, same month, November 1985 was Rocky IV.
Shit, was it that? Oh my god! I don't think we had sentient robots in 1985. I think
he was ahead of his time.
So wait, is this the version? So there's a version with the robot and a version without the robot at the start, isn't there? There's two versions.
Well, he did the director's cut recently,
right.
And he took all the robot out, but I prefer the robot in, because I think it's a beautiful product of its time in 80s cinema and Short Circuit and all of that.
Do you know what I mean? I sort of walked into this conversation about Rocky IV thinking I wouldn't be convinced, but do you know what? I'm convinced. I don't know that everyone else is. It's not on a lot of lists for Christmas movies, so it is an unpopular movie opinion. I'm putting up a poster for Rocky IV as a Christmas movie. And that's it. We've arrived at the last set of doors. Now, there is a queue of people hoping to join you and your gran in the auditorium. It's up to you. Do you want them to come in, or do you want this just you and her time? Because, I would get it. You don't have to invite them in. Do you want a busy auditorium?
I'm going to be ageist. I'm going to let in the old folk, all the youths. They can jog on. We're making it an OAP screening.
Well, the older people in the audience, they go wild, they go crazy, they're pouring into the auditorium. Now, before we get to the movie you've picked for us tonight, your ultimate Christmas movie, there's a few things we're going to play on the big screen. And the first, and this does not have to be a Christmas movie, the first is we're going to play a trailer for the movie you are most looking forward to seeing at the cinema.
Last year, when we did this, I had said that the movie we were playing in the movie theatre, I think, was Mad Max Fury Road. I'm pretty sure I said that.
That's correct. Yes. Yeah.
So when I was having a look at next year's schedule, what did I see? Furiosa. And I feel like we've come full circle. They're saying it's 2024. If I'm going to put Mad Max as my ultimate movie on my trip to the movies, I have to put Furiosa as my most anticipated trailer for movie for 2024.
You were saying a moment ago about crying at trailers. Crying at a lot of stuff, but crying at trailers. The Mad Max Fury Road trailer, I think it's set to Verdi. The dun 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 da da. That makes me weep. Like amazing. Like talking about weird stuff that you cry. Action makes me cry. Like really, really beautifully done action. Like the best example I have is the bit in The Matrix where Neo dodges bullets for the first time, doesn't get away with it. The agent standing over him goes, "Only human," and then it ends with Trinity just standing there going, "Dodge this." Tears every time. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah, especially those rousing action scenes. Rocky's a big part of that. Like, Rocky 4. Every time he cuts Ivan Drago, that punch. And the commentator goes, he's cut. The Russians. I genuinely get this flood of emotion, just because Dolph Lundgren's bleeding and he's done the impossible. And like action. I think action. Speed's another one. In Speed, I genuinely tear up at the bus gap jump. The way the music starts and all the passengers start and holding the handbag. The little older couple that hold each other. And Keanu with Sandra Bullock as they like, I'm getting goosebumps now. That type, like, obviously we cry at there's the Titanics and those movies. They're expected, but like, oh Jesus Christ. But yeah, when it's stuff like that, Speed, that flood of emotion and anticipation. Yeah. What did I say? Furiosa.
Furiosa, yeah. So it's Anya Taylor-Joy as playing a younger Furiosa. George Miller's back. I mean, everything's pointing towards this being a great movie. I wondered if you were going to pick actually, because I know we talked about it before. You're a huge Ghostbusters fan. You obviously voiced Tobin in the game Spirits Unleashed. You excited for Frozen Empire? You've seen the little trailer?
It was on my list. I had obviously that. I was Dune 2 was there, but Ghostbusters was a tough one because I liked Afterlife a lot, and I liked the look of the trailer. I think, am I right? It's based or it takes inspiration from the cartoon, one of the episodes apparently.
Apparently so, yeah.
That red jacket, I want it. I'm buying it. Or whatever they're wearing at the end, that winter coat, Ghostbusters uniform. I mean, I want the merch. I should be able to hook that up. But
I reckon.
But there's something about. Look, I think I know, and I don't mean this as a negative. I think I know what I'm going to get with Ghostbusters. I've seen Afterlife. I'm a fan. I'm in. With George Miller, I don't know what we're going to get from Furiosa. I genuinely don't know. Just like no one could have anticipated that Fury Road was going to be what it was. And that alone even is why it picked even Doom 2, is the unpredictability of it. And that could be to its own detriment. Like, what are we going to get? What is this movie? Yeah, that alone makes it be the most anticipated movie for me for next year.
I love it. We're playing the trailer for Furiosa on the big screen. So next up on the big screen, we are playing the moment in a Christmas film that makes you literally or metaphorically pump your fist in the air.
Batman Returns. Christmas movie.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
100%, right?
Yeah.
It's the first time I think the clowns attack and they shine. They're like, Commissioner Gordon, and they throw up the bat signal. And it's cast into the sky, and the way this system works is it like picks up the signal and registers it, and then it has its own one, and it flashes it back into Wayne Manor, and it basically flashes onto Bruce. But the reason it gets me is, I get super hyped about it because obviously it's the rousing theming and the Danny Elfman of it all. It's done super well, but there's also this element of it that like he was waiting for it. It always gets me because he's not doing anything, right? And usually when Bruce is called, there's other shit going on. But this is a Michael Keaton just sitting in this gothic mansion, just like that, and waiting for something to pop off in Gotham to then be like, all right. And I just get super hyped every time for that moment. Yeah.
It's a great moment. It's a great moment because you're like, I think it's because it's such an alien thing for a lot of us. No, when do you ever find yourself just sitting thinking in a chair? He's not, like you say, he's not doing anything. He's not watching TV. He's not fucking around on his phone. He's just sitting in a dark room, and then bang, the bat signal. He's like, right. Oh, I'll stop doing whatever I'm not doing and go do something. Brilliant.
Well, that's always been like the thing about Bruce. And I actually wanted to write a script about this, or at least a comic book. But like, we always seem to kind of gloss over and dust over the fact that he has some serious mental health issues. Like, I don't even mean that as a bit. Like, he needs help, and Alfred is super enabling. Alfred is a terrible person who is like, yeah. So he's in his 30s. He dresses up, and I sort of just patch him up and go, like that. There's nothing wrong with Alfred. So I don't know what the fuck Alfred's doing, allowing this to be going down and not like calling someone. But like, this guy is so broken, and like, yeah. I mean, the movies. I think I felt like Keaton had that more than any of the others. I felt like Keaton was the most damaged and got it. Like, this guy's nuts. I mean, you see it, right? Against the Joker when he, You
want to go nuts? Let's go nuts. That, of course, yeah. Let's get nuts.
That was like, at that point he was on par with the Joker, and it's like, well, yeah, he is. He is just as unhinged as the Joker. They just have two different kind of missions. But that's why I love the Keaton thing. That's why I get hyped. There's something about this person's, he's waiting alone to just go out and beat the fuck out of people in Gotham. And like, that signal could be, it doesn't need to be that big. It's right on him as well, right? It could just be like a little light in the room, and he goes, it could be hardware. No, it has to be projected onto his entire house, and then he sort of stands up. It just is so unhinged. It just gets me super excited for the chaos.
I mean, you said I was going to write a script. Were you seriously thinking, you want to put pen to paper and actually write a script, or were you just like toying with an idea?
I had this idea for a graphic novel, stroke movie. And I don't want to give it away because otherwise someone will.
Yeah. You know,
I'll tell you off camera, but it's I think we genuinely, and we have the sort of, connections to sort of have a serious chat about it, which is the only reason why I wouldn't share it. But I wanted to do this little run. I've never written anything before, but like, I had this fucking decent idea with Alana about what we could do with that character. It'd be super interesting. But yeah, I'll tell you off camera.
Yeah, that sounds awesome, man. Yeah. I just want to throw you one other moment as a fist pump moment from Batman Returns, which in my opinion is the greatest Batman movie, which raises a few eyebrows when people talk about The Dark Knight, but fuck it, I'm going there. Batman Returns is the best Batman movie, in my opinion. Yeah. But then, it's like what we were talking about. It's like, is it the Pavlovian thing? It was the one I saw as a kid at the cinema, the first Batman movie I saw at the cinema. And I was just like, anyway, the bit is where Michelle Pfeiffer, the Penguin, and Batman are having a chat on the street, and then she flips. She flips like about 8 times out of the department store. She goes, flip, 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 beat, meow. And then the windows explode behind her, and I just get goosebumps. There you go, goosebumps talking about it. I just think it's just incredible, that moment.
I'll say this, though, like, at this point, I don't know what iteration we're on, but Tim Burton's Batman absolutely nailed the casting. Like, obviously, you look at something like, what Nolan did with it, and even with the Matt Reeves one. But like to get it that right, to get Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman is like the ultimate fan casting for that era. Of course, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman. Danny DeVito, the Penguin, like that shit is straight out of the message boards of people going for the most obvious choice for something, but getting it too. Who should be the Joker? Jack Nicholson. Like, do you know what I mean? It's so. The only one that's crazy is Michael Keaton. And now is a no-brainer. You're like, well, of course it's fucking Michael Keaton. He's but like, yeah, that what they did with that. I mean, even like down to Alfred and is it Pat Hingle and Commissioner Gordon. Everyone was perfect. Yeah, I put some respect on the Tim Burton franchise. Yeah.
I did see you sort of raise your eyebrow at Batman Returns being the best Batman movie, though. You weren't quite sold on that one.
Yeah, because I think it's... I've got Reddit takes, haven't I? I'm about to say something I'm sure regurgitated from Reddit, but I think it's a bit too Tim Burton.
Right.
I think it's great, but like 89... But then 89's the one for me, because that was the one that I saw first, that I watched a million times, and like I know that movie back to front. I got to work with Danny Elfman, and I could,
How was that? What did you work with Danny Elfman on?
Oh, there's a crazy delay between us. I think I did a movie called Next Exit, and Marley Elfman directed it. And through that experience, I got to meet Danny, and he had written a couple of the melodies for that. So he had worked a little bit on it. I don't think he served as the composer of the movie, but he worked in a small kind of hands-off way. But I got to spend the day with Danny at his studio, and like, I mean, I'm a product of the Tim Burton kind of early era, so Edward Scissorhands, Beetlejuice, Batman Returns, and I'm just straight listing song titles off that album, like, oh, Flowers is dope, Darkness Descent or whatever, Descent into Darkness is one of my favorites, and that Batman 89, that sound, Charge of the Batmobile, the song that plays when the automated Batmobile drops the bomb inside the Acme, whatever it's called, where they make the acid or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really kind of like was a bit intense with old Elfman on that one. Because I think Batman 89 was like the first, like, what was my first or second movie obsession. It was that and Mars Universe. I was 4 when 89 came out. And I think my dad recorded it off BBC when it was first on television, so I must have been about 6 maybe or 7. But yeah, it was a proper obsession, that one.
Yeah, I mean, I loved 89 as well. And when something, there's something that like it seeps into your brain as a kid, and you don't know why, but you carry it with you for the rest of your life, and it's a real thing. And I could never ever die in a thigh length silk dressing gown and slippers, and it's Jack Palance's death in that. I'm just like, it's so embarrassing to be found like that in a short silk dressing gown. I can never. I just don't want to go that way. I've said to people, if you ever find me in that state, dress me, and then I don't. It doesn't matter if you disturb the crime scene. I can't be seen in a dressing gown like that. It really upsets me, his death.
I remember that scene always
Right.
gets a big laugh out of my sister, because doesn't he go, "Is that you, Sugar Lumps?" And then Jack Nicholson's like, "Yeah, it's me, Sugar Lumps," or something like that. Always used to get a laugh out of my sister. Yeah.
Right, we're playing Batman Returns. The Bruce waiting for the bat signal scene. Right, next up, we are going to play what you consider the most shocking moment in a Christmas film.
Okay. So it works only if we acknowledge that Rocky IV is a Christmas movie, right?
And I did.
Case,
I'm with you now.
And you did. Okay. So then it has to be Apollo Creed's death. I think it was one of the most harrowing things I had seen at a young age. It was like, that might have been one of my first introductions or earliest introductions to mortality. And as a kid, so it's like it was probably that and the Bruce Wayne one from '89. Apollo's death, the music that Vince DiCola, I think, isn't it? Is Vince DiCola did the soundtrack for the score for Rocky IV, but he has this synthesizer that plays ominous villain theme for Drago. And it's like dun dun dun, and the night of the fight they play this theme because dun 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 dun, and it's got this like real and you got shots of just this machine, and like for years my sister, who was like my movie watching partner, that was the one bit she could never watch. Like she would react to that segment, even the Living in America. That's not a joyous song for me. That's like a death march. Like that's something bad's gonna happen whenever I hear that song. And it's Living in America. And like, yeah, and the first time the sound effects, obviously it's, crazy over the top sound effects, but the first time Drago hits Apollo in that ring and it just sounds like a car crash. And it's just this like brutalizing of this guy. It's still, now when I show people the Rocky franchise, like it's still shocking to people. I think it does. I think to everyone, like we take it for granted, we know obviously, but like it's done quite viciously, and I think it still holds up. I think me and Alana, she had just watched it for the first time, and I remember her kind of when he Dolph Lundgren's cocking this right hand back, and then he just unleashes it. Yeah, it still holds, man. 38 years later.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. If he dies, he dies. And that whole bit where you're like, I mean, the only and ahhing about it is the fact that I know Apollo says, "Don't throw in the towel, no matter what happens," and you're sort of like watching Rocky, watching his friend really severely like get beaten up, and he's just sort of going, "Oh, I did make a promise though," and you're like, "It doesn't fucking matter. Throw the fucking towel in. He's dying out there."
But I think when I was younger, that was frustrating, and you felt like he was to blame, Rocky was to blame. But as I've got older, because I do watch that movie a lot, you realise that Apollo's committing suicide. And it's he's miserable, and I think that was the layer that's not necessarily. I feel like because it was an 80s movie, because it's a big budget, franchise at that point. I don't think they wanted to be so super heavy-handed with it, but everything he talks about seems like someone who's lost the will to live and is depressed and is stuck in the glory years, and almost willingly goes into this knowing, this is how I want to go. Do not fucking stop me. This is my last battle. I want to die on the battlefield. And Rocky is the only thing Rocky's wrestling is whether or not to let his friend get what he wants.
Wow.
Right?
That's an interesting read.
And everyone else gets it, but he said to him, If there's no, what did he say? If there's no water fight, then the warrior might as well be dead. Stallion. I had to put that bit on the end. But he's letting him know, I think, early on, this is it. This is what I want to do. And then obviously, yeah, it's also, yeah, I don't know. That's my read on it anyway.
That's a great read. I hadn't even considered that, but that does change it and does make it a lot more understandable why Rocky is doing what he's doing. Talking of shocking moments, though, I will say this of the Fall of the House of Usher. It's the first Mike Flanagan series that I have had to take a break from. It takes a lot to screw me up. I watch a lot of horror. I watch a lot of nasty things. It's water for ducks back at this stage. It's been a long time since I've gone, I'm not going to be able to watch this next episode for a bit. I need a day and a half just to recalibrate. I'll let you have a guess as to which episode, the climax. You do, don't you?
Episode 2, Acid Party, Mask of the Red Death, right?
Fuck me. It's horror. It was so horrible.
Visceral. I remember reading it, the descriptions in the script. I remember this one that stands out. It's something like you can see someone's jawbone sticking out. Like there was like all this description of the viscera and the melting, but like it was this. I think, and everyone was waiting for that day. That was like the. Every show has the day where, like, have they shot it yet? Oh, they're shooting it next week. It's this, and that was the one, right? It was the Perry acid, the cuddle puddle, and I think I also remember. So we all the cast at a certain point had to be. The name escapes me now. This is so bad of me. Special effects house, incredible special effects house that did hours on Usher. We all needed casts for digital doubles and prosthetics. And I remember going to their studio in LA, not like maybe 3 months, 4 months before we started filming, to get my cast done. I'd never had that before. You know, they cover you and you sit there with the nose holes trying to not have a panic attack. And while I was there, they had about 6 people working around the clock on just the cuddle puddle stuff, because a lot of it was real. And I was, you know, it was even in just 3 months out, just their like studio, their area, just this table covered in like melted acidic body parts. It was wild. So I knew then, I was like, this is going to be nuts. And apparently, again, I don't know if this is true. I could be embellishing this. I heard that we caused a shortage of prosthesis or whatever texture they use to make those bodies. We caused an industry shortage because of how much needed to be used to create that scene. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's true, but yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it was worth it because, like I said, very rare to have. I couldn't stop thinking about it. I went to bed thinking about it. I couldn't get to sleep thinking about it. I woke up thinking about it. It's just brilliant, and I think it's. I think it was unexpected as well. Even with people who've perhaps seen like Mike's previous series, this felt really, really like intentionally nasty.
Yeah. It did feel like. I mean, that's the thing about Mike is he can do that. That's, of course, that's always been, I think, in his toolbox. He can do jump scares, you know, like that's the thing. Like, I think every time I do see sort of like some negativity levied towards the work that we've been doing. So, excuse me. Yeah, any type of negativity usually is that it's. I'm falling apart, Alex. I don't know what's going on. Let me change my diet. Sorry, dude.
No worries.
It's. I have to take that line again. Hold on. Anyway, yeah. So a lot. If there are naysayers when I look at like Midnight Mass or Blind Man or any of the things I've been in, it's usually like it's not scary enough, not enough, you know, or you know, obviously the monologues are a thing that always get brought up. Like, oh yeah, monologues. cool. And you know what, like, I'm not vicious enough to be like, well, if you don't like that shit, then you're an idiot. No, like if it's not for you, it's not for you, and you're completely within your right to feel that way. It isn't monologues can be an acquired taste, sure, but it's something that Mike thoroughly enjoys and we enjoy performing, and it's his expression. But like, I think after Midnight Mass in particular, Usher definitely felt like a kind of a middle finger. I think like Mike going, oh, all right, you want that, you want something a little bit more kind of over the top and like in your face. Here's an orgy acid bath. Here is a monkey ripping off someone's face. Here's a woman carving open her own partner's chest. Like here's a guy being cut in half with a pendulum. Like, it definitely felt like I'm so happy for him, but like if you look at his body of work on Netflix, just in terms of the series, of course this had to be the final one before he left Netflix. Like, I love that this is his last kind of like, and I think he said it before, which is if Midnight Mass was like this poetic kind of symphony orchestra, and like, Hill House is like this tragic opera, then this is Flanagan's rock concert. Just sort of like Black Sabbath or Iron Maiden, just like fucking, like, that's where it kind of sits. And I love that that's the last one for him now as he goes over. Well, he's at Amazon.
I love that analogy. It works for me, and yeah, like you say, a great way to end his tenure at Netflix. Right, so we are playing then. Where did we start with that? Oh, that's right. We're starting. Apollo's death is where we started. Now we're going to play the line through the Dolby Atmos speakers from a Christmas movie that most affected you.
Okay, I have to reread this, so I'm going to have to pull out my phone here. Because I don't have it memorized. Okay, so it is. Oh God, let's put this on silent. There we go. It is. I sent it to. I wrote it down. Here it is. Okay, got it. The line that most affects me from a Christmas movie is: after you get where you're going, take off your shoes and your socks, then walk around on the rug barefoot and make fists with your toes.
From Die Hard 1988. Why that line?
You know how something so minor can just impregnate your brain, and it just stayed with me for life. I think that part comes up almost weekly or bi-weekly for me, fortnightly. Whenever I take a flight, I'm not a great flyer. I do get slightly anxious, and I've never checked, and I don't think I want to know if there was any truth to what that guy was saying to John McClane about, like, hey, you want to you want to feel good after a flight, do this. I know it was just for a script way of making sure he was barefoot. That's all that was. But like, I still do it now. So after a long flight, I do exactly that. So that scene, for some reason, like, I live by the ball your toes up on the carpet lifestyle. So I don't know, that feels like that has had the most effect on me, seeing as someone who travels a lot. I do that all the time, or at least think about that.
I love the fact that you've never checked, and never will check, because it's the fact that you've seen something in a movie and you've gone, well, that'll probably work. And whether the science is there or not, the fact that it works for John McClane is enough of a reason to go, I'm just going to live by that rule.
Yeah, because he does do it, right? He sits there and he goes, and he's like, son of a bitch. So I was like, and I couldn't think of, I was thinking of all the Christmas movies that I'd seen, and I was like, I think about that line from Die Hard every time I fly. That's got to have the most impact on my life. I don't even know if I do feel better afterwards. I think I don't actually think it feels as good as it sounds. but I still do
You
it.
need a thick carpet. It's got to be a bit of sort of shag carpet and like that. That'll do it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm going to try it. I'm going to try
it doesn't work on hardwood floors.
it. No.
But 80s carpet.
Yeah. That proper thick 80s carpet. On the subject of Die Hard, obviously there's some great stunt work in Die Hard. There's a great scene in House of Usher, your episode, where you're swinging Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, round the flat, smashing up the apartment, and then you go over the edge of the railing, chasing a mystical cat. Was that you going over the railing?
I wish. That had to be talked off, that one. Yeah, it was a stunt.
Oh, really?
It was a stunt man. Yeah. His name's Mitchell. There's a tiny bit of a story that goes before it, which was I've had a lot of difficulty in Vancouver. So there's a stunt performer called, his name's Samuel Smith, and he was my first ever stunt double, and it was on iZombie, which is a huge deal. 10 years of wanting to be an actor, and then your first job, you have a stunt double when someone's dressed as you and they've had to like put a fake beard on someone. That's when you feel like, oh yeah, I've made it. Like, you have a stunt double, dude. So I was like super enamored by Sam, and like became like really cool, like close mates with him, and I loved him, and I was like, you're my first ever fucking stunt double, dude. And he did the first few seasons, and he was a fantastic double for me. And then he got injured, I think, doing The Revenant, and the DiCaprio one, and we couldn't work with him anymore on iZombie. And then for the next few years, it was a real struggle to find a fit for me, and we ended up having slightly problematic. We were having white dudes in brown face, so there was all sorts of stuff going on that I was always a bit like, I don't think Tumblr or Twitter's going to be happy about this. And what started happening was I would start going, yeah, I'm going to do this stuff. And that was what happened pretty much. So they would spend 5-6 hours putting fake beards on, painting hairs on these dudes, white guys and that. And then I would be like, nah, I'm doing it. I'm not letting that go on screen, this abomination. And then Krista is our... I'm doing all the names without surnames, but Krista was our stunt coordinator on Fall of the House of Usher. She actually was Rose's stunt double on iZombie. Now she's a stunt coordinator running the show, and so we were kind of reunited. Oh, wow. And she went out of her way to find a performer of my complexion, because it should open up jobs, right? I mean, like, I'm there, but that's representation. Yeah. So now that should hopefully... It's not going to change the industry, but it should allow the right doubles and stunt performers to come and step in, So she found Mitchell, and then on the day of the stunt, and Mitchell had been waiting all day. He'd been dressed up for 2-3 days, just in case there was anything I couldn't do or didn't want to do on the day, so he was always there. But I did it all. There wasn't anything crazy. It was just smashing the drywall. And then it came to the stunt, and my ego got the better of me, and I was like, I'm fucking doing it. And everyone was like, no, you're not, because it was an elevated stage. It was actually stupid, but like it was like 15, 16 feet off the ground. And you were just going to jump off this balcony past the scaffolding onto a crash mat, because it wasn't built for the stunt. It was built to just be an elevated set on a soundstage. And I was just like, no, I'm doing it. I do my own fucking stunts. And then like Mike's like, this is so dumb. Why is it? And I think Krista was like, he's been waiting all, like, this is his first job, the stunt guy. And then the better of me, like, my common sense kicked in. I was like, hold on, you've been trying to get a stunt performer in, and you're going to rob him of this one fucking thing he wants to do that he's been training for, he's been practicing for. And now you want to do it. Get out of his way. Let him do it. This is like, practice what you preach. So I stepped back, and he launched himself off it, and he looked gorgeous. He did such a great job. The best thing about it is, if you watch it in slow motion, as I run towards the balcony, my tits are jangling and that. But as I hit the balcony, I die with a 6-pack. As I twist off, you just see like fucking obliques and a six pack as I bounce off the balcony. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Hey, we've got to our penultimate question. We're nearly at the end. And this question is what you consider the best use of music in a Christmas movie.
I think the best use of music in a Christmas movie is Home Alone, John Williams. And I think people always forget that it's John Williams. Like, that score is so damn good. Those are original. He's written original pieces there, but they seem like they've been around for Christmas time forever. They seem like church songs almost, but they're not. Like, dun, 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 dun. I'm pretty sure that's an original song, right? I mean, I haven't done this super huge amount of research, but
yeah, what is it? Carol of the Bells or something? I don't know if that. I mean, certainly the main score.
The main score is...
Yeah, that one. That's definitely him. But I think I think there's an adaptation within the score of that, but I don't know that is actually John Williams. I'll have to check, but let's. I think it's a maybe for me.
It's either way. It's still got to be the best Christmas soundtrack for a Christmas movie. It's just tonally, and there's a moment in there as well where even the music makes me sort of swell up and cry. And it's when the old man who shovels salt or whatever, ice, gets rid of the ice on the pavements or whatever. He's watching his granddaughter from afar at a church do choir hymns, and whatever they're singing just gets me emotional. There's this deep, sad song. He talks about having to love his granddaughter from afar because he's fallen out with this. Anyway, the music in that movie for me is just so. It's like Home Alone. I'm kind of annoyed that it is such a good Christmas movie because Home Alone from start to finish is just a fantastic film. And you don't tend to watch Christmas movies outside of the holiday season. And I feel like that shortchanges it because it should be watched more often all year round. But it's so Christmas. It nails it so tonally and takes you to that place that it can only be watched at that time of year. Maybe that's what makes it special. I don't know.
So that is the score that's echoing around this auditorium. John Williams' score to Home Alone, which brings us to the final question of the night on this Rahul Kohli holiday season special. What Christmas movie out of all other Christmas movies have you chosen to screen for us tonight?
A Serbian film. For the OAP, it was all a ruse. No, it's Home Alone. I'm sad that those two questions were bundled together because, Home Alone. I think that might be the best Christmas movie ever made for me. I can't think of anything that just captures that time of year just so perfectly well.
So, do you remember when you first saw it? Was it at the cinema? Was it at home? What your reaction was? Did you immediately love it?
Yes, it was. I'm pretty sure. The thing is, I think it would have come out when I was 5. So I don't remember seeing Home Alone 1. I may have seen that on TV maybe later or on VHS. I can't remember watching it, but I can remember loving it. And I can remember being so in love with it that we, were super excited to see the New York one. Macaulay Culkin was the most relatable, coolest kid in the world. I was a bit of a scaredy cat kid, so I was scared of my own shadow, and one of the biggest things I was scared of was always burglars, robbers, burglars. Maybe they shouldn't have shown me fucking Batman 89 when I was a kid and other shit, but I was always terrified someone was going to kill my parents. Every time we left the movie theatre, especially, or we were walking home in somewhere in London and we were going into a car park, I honestly had PTSD from just the Tim Burton Batman movie, thinking, this is it. I'm going to turn around and someone's going to fucking shoot my family and ask me if I've ever had a dance with the devil in the pale moonlight. But Home Alone was the same. Like there was something so innately badass about it. Like that was my fear, was obviously being, someone intruding on our home, and the kid who's just like able to defend himself. And it's the ultimate kid film too, right? Like eats all the ice cream, like figures out how to go shopping for the first time. It's a super empowering movie for kids, I think.
Oh, it's a great movie, and like you mentioned, that score is fantastic. And I I know that you, as an actor, like music has played a huge part in your career when it comes to creating characters. And I think even at the very, very, very start at drama school, it was music that finally helped you sort of crack like what it was that you enjoyed about acting.
Yeah, 100%. That's good memory. It's part of the process, and I think I was saying this I did a podcast with Andy Gush, who was one half of the Newton brothers, and Alana Pierce and Austin Wintory, and I said to them that there's this like beautiful recycling that's going on, this inspiring circle, which is I create playlists for my characters, mostly comprised of movie soundtracks. And they help me to either do one of two things. They're either to keep me in character or to keep me in a particular mood, or the mood of where the character's at on that day. And then, I'm pulling out these earpieces like seconds before we start filming. I do the work that's been inspired by the music. And then these guys see the scene, and then they're scoring it, and it's like, you know what I mean? And then I might reuse their music for something else later that reminds me of that. And it's just this like really nice kind of relationship. Midnight Mass was, Bly Manor was actually didn't have any score. Bly Manor was all 80s music. It was like Cutting Crew, I Just Died in Your Arms Tonight, and Cruel Summer, Bananarama. I was just in that like Loverboy 80s moods, because that's when the show was set. And then Midnight Mass was all was Ennio Morricone, Dollars Trilogy stuff. It was all just spaghetti western shit. Yeah. And then on the last day in the church, it was all the Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal soundtrack. I used that for the rage and the thing. And then Usher, it's really weird. I would normally post my playlist, but Usher is all UK grime, drill, old school garage. I wanted to, so it's just like, so I've got some So Solid crew in there from back in the day. There's some gigs, and there's like some, it's just, it's all just sort of London music. There's some new stuff in there. That's what I was listening to all day. So I don't think I had a score on that one, on Usher.
Rahul, that's it, man. The curtains are closing on Home Alone. The guests, the older guests, and indeed your grandma, they're smiling, chatting, thanking you for taking them on an incredible festive trip to the movies. But before we go, it's time to ask the big question, the big one that we ask at the end of every show, which is tell our dear listeners an exclusive, never before heard fact about your career, past, present, or indeed future. Very Christmassy, very Christmas carol-y.
A never before said tidbit.
Yeah, something from your career previously, your career currently, or your career in the future that you haven't shared before.
This is not interesting to anyone but like a few people and my dad.
Go on.
But like full circle stuff, I don't know if this is true, but like, so Clint Eastwood was really, really, really hands-on with these like collectibles that Sideshow Collectibles are doing. He's got this line called the Clint Eastwood Legacy Collection, and it's these what scale is it called? I don't know, 6 scale. Yeah, 6 scale hyper kind of accurate models of Dirty Harry, Outlaw Josie Wales, Man with No Name, and he literally, because he's never really had merch. Clint helped with lawyers go to MGM, go there and go, I want to, let me get the rights for this. Let me get the rights for that. I want to do this Clint Eastwood Legacy collection. I think he's 94, wants to leave something behind. And I had ran my mouth for, I don't know, most of Midnight Mass's press. And they were like, what was your inspiration? And I was just like, Clint Eastwood. And it somehow got to Sideshow that, I had used a lot of the work, and even though it's not an impression, it's not even close to that. It was more inspirational. It wasn't me actually playing that guy, because you've seen it, it's not the same. It was just a feel. But they called me and were like, hey, would you come in and sign an NDA and check out the prototypes and let us know what you think? Have we captured the spirit of the Man with No Name? I was like, oh, I've just that dude on the BBC News who went for a caretaker job. I just I've been brought out as the Clint Eastwood expert. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll have a look. So I go and I fucking sign this NDA, and they line up the prototypes. And this is a year and a half ago. And I'm talking to the designer, and I'm like, yep, the hip's right. The hip placement looks good. And that's definitely how he squints. And then there was this discussion. This is a very long-winded story that doesn't have a good payoff. But then there was this discussion about Clint needs to promote it. It's his line. So they asked him, would he be willing to join social media, and start being hey, these are my stuff. If you're a fan of my work here. And I think ultimately he decided, nah, I'm not doing social media. It's probably best he doesn't. So he didn't. And then I think someone said what they did was they said, well, we have a super fan who's an actor, and he's gonna he's such a big fan. There wasn't a deal. I wasn't being sponsored. There's no hashtag ad. I wasn't getting anything out of it. But I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to blast these on social media. So I think there was some weird translation or email where they were like, Rahul Kohli from Midnight Mass, he's a big fan of yours. This kid's gonna he's gonna post every now and again because he's such a big fan of this series and stuff. And apparently he gave me the stamp of approval. Apparently, this is what I heard. He looked at it and he was like, sounds good to me. And that's the shittest story in a panic. No. But when I told my dad was like, what? He knows who you are. I was like, and that's what matters. It made my dad kind of sit back and be like, holy shit, if that happened.
I bet it did. I mean, he'll still have seal of approval. So if nothing else, on the lowest bar is that he knows who you are. The highest bar is that he goes, I know who he is, and I like this kid.
The lowest bar, maybe he goes, maybe I'll watch Midnight Mass. Because he said it's like The Man with No Name, and then he watches, he's like, what the fuck? It's nothing like The Man with No Name. This kid can't act. That's not an impression.
Well, that is it, Rahul. Your taxi has arrived to ferry you back to your Christmas reality. But before you go, it's time to recap your perfect festive trip to the movies. So you are going with your late grandmother because you'd love to be able to spend a day with her. You're going at noon because that's a good time to take your gran to the cinema. And you are going close to the aisle and near to the stairs because that is a good place for me and indeed your gran to sit. We have certain needs. Then you are going to be having a Christmas leftovers sandwich with absolutely no greens, lots of mayo and meat and Yorkshire puddings and stuffing and gammon and turkey, more meat and mayo. It sounds delicious. It sounds delicious. We are leaving the foyer and heading down the corridor. The poster we're putting up for your fondest movie memory is seeing Home Alone in the center of London when you were about 5 or 6 years old. The movie poster that depicts your worst movie memory. Oh, wow. I've not forgotten that. The Two Towers poster, the extended edition, but Not the one with the collector's edition with the Golem statue in there. The last performance of a Christmas movie that brought you to tears. Edward Scissorhands, Hold Me. I can't. What is your unpopular Christmas movie opinion? It is that Rocky IV is in fact a Christmas movie and should be celebrated as such, and it bloody well isn't at the moment, but the competition starts here. The movie trailer that we're playing, this didn't have to be Christmas related. You were excited about seeing Furiosa next year, George Miller's Mad Max Fury Road prequel. The movie moment that makes you pump your fist in the air from a Christmas movie is Batman Returns, and Bruce Wayne, aka Michael Keaton, he's just sitting there. He's not doing anything, and the biggest bat signal in the world appears. You consider the most shocking moment for a Christmas film. We've established Rocky IV as a Christmas movie, and therefore it is, of course, Apollo Creed's death in Rocky IV. The moment from a Christmas movie, the line from a Christmas movie that most affected you. After you get where you're going, take off your shoes and socks and then walk around on the rug barefoot and make fists with your toes from Die Hard because it works for you, IRL. The best use of music in a Christmas movie, John Williams' immaculate score from Home Alone. And finally, the Christmas movie you are screening for us is Home Alone. Rahul, considering we established early on you do not like Christmas, I'd say that's a hell of a festive Christmas trip.
And hearing it back, that was pretty... That wasn't like... controversial, I think. Maybe the Rocky IV might be, but like that's pretty festive. I didn't realise I had it in me.
I know, I was prepared for a full bar humbug, but I think we've got Ding Dong Merrily on High, so I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, maybe you know what? I'm not going to ruin Christmas this year. Maybe I do like it. I'm going to be on my best behaviour.
Oh, if that happens, do let me know. I'd love this show to have a legacy, which is that it's stopped you ruining Christmas. Thank you for being on. Have you enjoyed it? Considering you're not a fan of Christmas, have you enjoyed this journey?
Yeah, I love chatting with you. Evidently so. Like it's one of my favorite things to do now. It feels like a tradition is to chat with your movies and stuff like that. It always feels like it's over too soon. But yeah, no, it's been awesome, and I'm kind of glad because if you had given me a choice and gone, do you want to do the Christmas one? And I said no. I'm all right. I don't really watch that. But it forced me to think. It forced me to look back at stuff and remember things that I had just forgotten about. I hadn't thought about Christmas at my grand's in years. I hadn't thought about the Toadfish neighbors trumps, and it was it forced being out of my comfort zone forced me to like have open up some fun memories. So I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure as always. I love chatting to you, and I can't wait to do the next one already. Whatever the next whatever the next time you're activated is for, whenever Mike Flanagan reactivates you, I'm sure we'll talk. But in the meantime, thank you very much, mate.
Appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for watching this interview. I'd love it if you would check out some of the other interviews on our channel. They're all fascinating and unique trips to the movies with some wonderful, wonderful guests. And if you would like to find out more, do hit us up on our social channels. We are at Trip to Movies Pod. That's at Trip to Movies Pod on all social media with lovely content on there. And you can get in touch with us if you so wish. Thanks again.